Welcome everybody, I'm Terry Vissing. I'm from Marysville, Indiana, and we are here to don the 2020 Podfathers. Okay, so we're going to start out with these 5 guys, and I'm humbled to be up there with them. I think they've all raised over 100 bushel of soybeans this past year, and we're going to go through them and talk to them about it a little bit and get some, maybe hopefully get some hints for some of you viewers that's growing soybeans, how we can get to the higher levels of soybean yields. So to start with, we're going to start with Corey Atlee. He's from Ohio. I think, Corey, would you have 100? You can tell your story now.
No, I'm the one that didn't. I was slacking this year. 95. So the highest yield we had this year was 95. First year we've been below 100 for a while, but the weather just didn't help us at all. And we was hot and dry, and beans needed rain, and we didn't get the rain. So
okay,
I'm still happy with it. I'm not gonna be upset with the 95. But.
Yeah, that's not too shabby.
That's not slacking.
Yeah, he's not a slacker, but we're going to see how as we go across the room here. Corey, I see that you were doing some intercropping with the soybeans and the corn, and that was one question that's sort of new to the country. And I think you've talked about the corn on the CornWarriors show, but what do you feel about the intercropping with the soybeans?
That's tough because the beans, they really took off. One, the whole season was kind of ruined from the start on our bean side of things. One, we have zero irrigation, so we've got to count on rain. Another reason, our plant date. You're not going to raise a good crop of beans that 150 range June 5th.
Okay.
Not in Ohio, at least. I can't do it. I like planting them March, early April, and in 2020, the first bean field we got planted was May 5th.
Okay.
And that was the earliest we had, and that really set us behind. And with the intercropping, we was feeding it so much with the corn side of things that the beans just really got rank on us, and we pulled the population down to around 80,000, and I think they averaged 75 bushel. Okay. in the intercropping, so that was a big failure. I didn't work out that well, but I knew it wasn't going to be good just because of the plant date. There's only so much we can do to that.
Okay, before we get a little further along, Corey, how many acres of beans and corn do you produce?
We do roughly on any given year, we farm 8,000 acres, so we'll do 4,000 beans, 4,000 corn.
Okay.
And we're all 20-inch rows.
20-inch rows.
So we're using the same planters.
Okay. Rotational wise, do you rotate corn to soybeans every year? Or?
We try to, yes.
Okay.
Yep, but we're market dictated though.
Okay, go through a little bit. Let's start out a little bit with you said your population was low. Tell us a little bit about your fertility program, what you aim to do with the corn, and even maybe you could even tell us poundage and all that.
Okay, well, we treat corn completely separate from the bean side of things. Bean side, we're normally going to put on 100 pounds of MAP, 100 pounds of potash. In the fall, we're going to put down sulfur, and we just try to incorporate that. I know our soils can't handle too much salt, so we will make multiple trips. We're going to come back in the springtime, make another pass with the dry. And then some of the ground that we're going to attack will even come in later within the season with it. We're just trying to layer the soils that we have. The best way I can put it is, we all like salt on your fries, but you don't see anybody taking a spoonful of salt and eating it. Well, your soil's the same way.
Nice comment. Okay, what varieties, what company, what varieties do you go with, and talk about that a little bit.
On the bean side, we're mainly Asgrow. Okay. So we are trying some Pioneer beans now. Last year, they got wiped out by grasshoppers. No fault of theirs, but we was just that dry. Grasshoppers came in and picked them clean.
What, in your management style compared to your neighbors, do you feel like you are doing managing like the neighbors, or where do you put yourself above your neighbors?
I would say we're definitely above the neighbors.
Okay.
soybeans in Ohio, I mean, there's great growers within the state of Ohio. I think this year a guy from up in northern Ohio had 115 bushel beans.
Okay.
So it's out there, but as a whole, beans get pushed back as a secondary crop. People really don't care about them. They got to plant them because they have to. They was told to. So, you know, your typical yields would be in that 40 to 55 bushel range. You know, our goal is, you know, we really don't do plots of beans, but we want to have an 80 to 85 average across 4,000 bushel or 4,000 acres.
Okay. On your, do you do seed treatments, and what type of seed treatments do you do?
Yeah, so everything gets fully treated, Levo on it. With our population, we want to pull it down. So I'm anywhere running scripts from 60 to 120,000 out there. So the money we save on that, I'm going to put as much as I can within the treatments and things like that, just to get it off to a better start, just so we can stress it later and then hopefully pick it back up later.
Okay, and follow up with your fungicide treatments?
Yes, yep. We do about 2 different treatments. We'll come in at R1, R3. If it's looking really good, we'll come back at R5.
Yeah.
But that's only that's a hand-selected few.
Let's back up just a bit. Are your maturity dates on your beans?
Maturity dates, normally, typically, we do 3.1 to 3.8. Here, because of pricing, we're now going to bring in a 2.7. We can run 4.0s, but I've never made a 4.0 work. It's more of a mental thing with me. I can make them look good, but I can't make them yield, so I've learned just to stay the heck away from 4.0s.
Okay, I guess next, do you have a team on your farm that sets out the management plan, or you've got a father that works with you, I suppose?
Yep. So my dad,
family a little bit?
Yep, my dad works with me on the farm. I would be the 6th generation farmer. It's been in our ground in our family for a long time. My cousin's farm, so the Atlee farms, we was once broke into 3 different family farms. And now it's just me and my father, and then my cousin still farm also. But as far as management and practices goes, I mean, that's what I'm doing now. So we try to make everything preset to where no matter who's in a tractor, what equipment, it's just simple as push a button. So we have about 10 to 15 people that's going to be working for us here in about another week. And it's not that I don't trust that they're going to do it right. It's just everybody makes mistakes. And when you only have a planting window of 5 to 10 days, we can't afford mistakes.
Okay.
So we try to control as much as we can, and automation is the way to go. We know where no matter who's in there, you just click a button and everything's going to be preloaded for them. And as long as they make sure they got seed and liquid in there, they're good.
Now, I understand you use H2A workers.
Pardon?
Are they H2A workers?
No.
They're just local?
Yeah.
Just use local help?
Yep.
How's the help situation on a farm of your size?
Tough.
Okay.
Tough. The younger generation is getting harder and harder to find that wants to work and put in hours, and they want more and more pay and less jobs. It's a hard one to fix. So it's tough. The crew we have now, I'll put up against anybody's. We're very blessed to have a good crew, but you really don't want to lose them because you put so much work into finally everybody working on the same page, and then when somebody retires or quits, it's a headache because we'll go through 5 people just to fill one spot.
Okay, explain for 2020, what do you think? I know we always want to talk about silver bullets or the common soybean growers say, well, what do you really think made your bean crop this year to the yield that it did this year? Do you have one single thing that you would say that you did the right thing or would like to do better for 2021?
Plant date. That's the biggest thing. As a whole on the bean side, so we always plant our beans first. I can keep Dad occupied with it. It's warm, sun shining. He's got to be in that field. So let's go make our mistakes with the beans. Beans are a lot more forgiving with that than the corn. And when we didn't get started until May, it's just, beans are harvesters of sunlight. And when we took away a month and a half of sunlight from those beans, it really hurt.
Okay, on your planting operation, do you use fertilizers on your planter, or talk just a little bit more how you're fertilizing this crop all the way through, let's say to R3?
Well, so we're set up for dry fertilizer, as far as a spinner box.
Okay.
Planter-wise, we just use water. We use 4 gallons of water. We're going to throw in a fulvic acid. We're going to throw in food for biologicals, and then we're going to do a liquid inoculant, and then we're going to have another inoculant within the seed, and that's all we run.
Okay.
That's all.
Foliar applications later on this season?
Yep.
Or?
So we're going to burn them, stun them at the V stages, ding them up, let them recover on their own. R1, we're going to switch over and start feeding them. We're going to start helping them along. In R3, we're going to just keep putting more and more to them as we go on, as long as they're looking good. This year, our biggest problem was just we had the bushiness, we had the pods. The bean size was just so small. I did not do a good job at all getting test weight to the beans. They were
hard to make it rain.
It was bad.
Okay, thank you, Corey. We're going to move on to Mr. Perry Galloway. Perry's from Arkansas, and I'll have to say I've known Perry probably longer than any of these fellows here. And we were at a Monty's meeting in Louisville, Kentucky about 10 or 12 years ago, and Perry was a high yield guru, so I made sure I came to the meeting, and Perry got up there and he told all about everything. So I walked up to the front of the room, and Perry I introduced myself, and I thought, man, I need to get some tips out of this guy. He knows how to raise soybeans. So I think before it was all over, he was asking me how to grow them more than I was asking him. So anyway, Perry's a good friend of mine, and he comes from Arkansas, and I think he wants to tell you a story, and pretty large size irrigated farmer. Perry, go ahead and tell your...
Yeah, so thanks, Harry. It's an honor being up here with you. I never would have imagined that, but I guess maybe I taught you something. But I'd like to point out two things. We're the only ones up here that aren't wearing a hat. I don't know what that means, but
the rest of them are bald.
I think that's where I'm going with this.
See, now you know.
Hey, Perry.
Hey.
Oh. My COVID's not out as long as you have, and I'm not there yet.
You'll get there. So you talked to us about us meeting, gosh, that was 10 or 12 years ago, probably.
Probably at least.
And a little story behind that. He knows I'm going to tell this on him. So I flew up here, and it was in Indianapolis, and so I got out of the plane. I thought I'm gonna get an Uber to come pick me up. So I went to my phone and typed in Uber, but I misspelled it. I typed in goober, and I looked up, and Terry Vissing picks me up. So
I knew that was coming, folks.
yeah, I love to tell that story. Actually, that's a story from another friend of ours, but that's why he introduced Terry and I one time, that I showed up, and I was looking for an Uber driver and typed in goober, and Vissing showed up. So anyway.
Well, Perry, tell your yield.
So,
you got more to tell.
No, I'll quit with the jokes. Get back to business. Yield was.
Wait a minute, generation. How many generations?
Oh, how many generations?
How many
that seems to be an issue.
Confirmed.
I'm confirmed 6.
Yeah, 6.
Now, when I say confirmed, I'm not like Terry. I can't count to 10. So whatever's past 6, 1852. My family's been farming on some of the same land that I'm farming on this day since 1852. So if you're good at counting generations, it's at least 6, probably 7.
Gosh,
That's
a long time.
And that's on both sides of the family. I farm about 10,000 acres. The family farms aren't that big, but they were in the 5,000 acre range between 2 families. And one family by U.S. patent, 1852, and the other 1856. And however many generations that is, I'm the last active farmer of the 2 farm families in our East Central Arkansas area. So, all that being said, 10,000 acres, we're about 90+% irrigated. Corn, soybeans, rice, a little bit of wheat. Semi-retired cotton farmer. We used to raise all cotton on a lot less acres, so I enjoy cotton. And that's maybe some of the way my perceived success, I question it sometimes, is cotton's a high management crop in the field all all the time, every day. Matt can attest to that. And when I started cutting back on my cotton acreage, moving more into grains, I had all this extra time on my hands. So boots in the field, that wasn't the cotton. I said, well, I'll start playing more in the corn and soybeans. So a lot of time and effort goes into a production year on my farm. So what else? You want?
I don't think we ever told you.
Yeah. So yield, I mean, it's pretty respectable. I got 5,000 acres. Pretty much treated all the same. Some fields are obviously better than others, but my yield for this was a little over 113 bushels, I think.
Okay,
so
very good.
we did break the 100 bushel. You know, this year we had at least 2 hurricane tropical storm events, maybe 3, and that really hurt us. I know when we were harvesting our plots, wasn't uncommon to see yields in the 130s, but you know, they're just, when 50% of the plot was down flat where we couldn't harvest it and affected by the weather, you know, it hurt. So, but there's always an obstacle. So, but I'll take the 113 bushels and be happy with it.
Was that dry land or irrigated?
No, it's all irrigated. This particular field was furrow irrigated.
How do you treat your non-irrigated to your irrigated on your soybeans?
Well, our soils are so light. I mean, our average CEC is probably 4.5, less than 5. Probably the highest CEC soil I have is 6.5. So a lot of extremely light soils. You know, moisture is always an issue. The advantage of the light soils is, you know, they're easy to manipulate, you know, fertility-wise, and we may talk about that later. But our basic fertility program, you know, revolves around poultry manure, or poultry litter, broiler litter, because we're close to the foothills of Arkansas and the hills of Arkansas, which is a lot of poultry up there, so we have easy access to poultry manure. So usually gets about 2 tons a year. And I've been in this program forever, 10, 12 years. We use a lot of humic acids, organic acids. Been doing that for years. So over time, you know, I'm talking about soil health. You know, the soil, you need to get the soil working for you instead of just throwing darts. So over 10 or 12 years, we just built our soil up so much that it releases a lot of plant food nutrition. And as light as it is, we're able to manipulate that even further if we need to.
Okay, talking about your fertility, do you all do a lot of soil sampling, and then do you have a tissue sample program for your soybeans and your corn?
Oh, absolutely. We always do soil tests. I have soil tests at least one every 3 years. Sometimes I've done year after year after year, and I pretty much know where they are, and I know where our problem areas are, what we're going to run into with our light soils. We're going to be short on boron, sulfur, magnesium's low. So, you know, those are constant battles, and that shows up in the tissue test. So, you know, as we tissue test, we do a fair amount of foliar feeding. And I'm not a knee-jerk reaction. You know, I expect it, so depending on the weather, or maybe we've made an application that just hadn't showed up in the tissue yet, I'm not just going to go out and make a blanket application of magnesium just because one set of tissue tests came back deficient. Okay. Usually it'll fix itself.
Perry, you might talk a little bit about, I understand you own 2 air tractors.
Yeah, we
talk about that business a little bit.
Well, we're pretty vertical in agriculture, so we've got an early application business, ag retail, where we sell seed and chemicals, and then as well as a farming operation. Stay pretty busy. If I'm not in the field, I'm in a meeting, or I'm always got something to do.
Okay.
So.
And with you being in Arkansas, maybe let the viewers know you're planting early. Is beans, corn, how do you do that?
You know, that's a good question. We still plant corn first.
Okay.
And at some point, hopefully we'll get through with corn. I have planted corn as early as right now, around before March the 10th. Usually it gets closer to the end of March. And if a good season, we're really ready, we can get that done and have beans planted by, or start planting beans by early April, certainly April the 10th. And that does give us the highest yields by, I don't know what the number would be, but it gives us our best opportunity to set nodes, hold pods, and just fill the pods. So where early we get them, they're not just subjected to as much heat and adverse conditions. And we do tend to get a lot of pure sunlight earlier than later, I would say.
Perry, talking to you in the past, I know that you were, like you said, a big cotton grower, and row widths were about 40 inches back then, and I think you've drifted toward narrow rows, but twin rows possible? Talk about that a little bit.
I've done a lot of that. We were cotton's 38-inch rows, and that's pretty standard. And that's the history on that. That's how wide a mule's butt is, about 38 inches. So
good analogy.
Back in the mule days, that's why we're still on 38-inch rows. So I farm 38-inch rows in cotton, corn, and some beans. I do drill, or not drill, but drill and plant on narrow rows on some beans. But I went to twin row. Twin row 38 is about equivalent to a 30-inch planter. And then over time, I said, well, I'm just going to go straight to 30 inches. So we did that a few years ago. We run two exact emerge John Deere high-speed 16-row planters. We've got a DB60, two DB60s we plant beans with on 15-inch rows. And a lot of that has to do with irrigation. When we're furrow irrigating, I need the wider rows to get the water, to have the middles for the water run down. The narrow rows, the 15-inch rows, I don't know if I said it earlier, but I've got 50 pivots, 52 pivots, somewhere in that range. So a lot of that will get the narrow row planting.
Okay.
And just like Corey did, I played with the intercrop this past year. We did it on a 40-foot pattern, 16 rows of corn.
Okay.
16 rows of beans, and we were able to manipulate the planting population per row because of the capabilities of the planter. Worked pretty good. I don't know if it's worth the, I won't say hassle, because it wasn't as bad management-wise as I initially thought. I thought weed control would be a problem, but we went with the Extend platform. Been on the Extend technology since it came out. And now looking forward to going to Extend Flex. But back to the intercrop, the corn on the outside rows, we were planting 52,000 for the outside 2 rows, and then we stepped it down to, ended up at 36 on the inside 4 rows. With the hurricanes and tropical storms, the outside rows went down. They lodged. So I've done some presentations on that this year. Some of them are virtual, available online. And you can see the picture, just the high population on the outside rows and 2 hurricane events, 70+ mile-an-hour winds. After grain fill, it was just too much. Plants couldn't stand it. But it's very easy to see in some of those pictures. Yield-wise, the corn was, even in the spots that may not have been down as bad, they were close to 300 bushels. Beans, as accurately as I could figure, we're just slightly over 100. So again, it does work, or it worked for me. I just don't know. I may do it,
Okay.
I may try it again. I thought weed control was going to be a problem, but we went with some BASF products. We went with Zidua, some Outlook, stuff that would work for both. We put Ingenia out, which is safe for corn as well as the Extend beans, and another Group 15 Outlook Zidua, and it was clean. Okay. And we've got a lot of this Palmer pigweed resistance in our area, and that's always a struggle, but it was not that bad. 2 applications, and we were clean full season.
Okay. Perry, I know that you're only one in your family that's farming there. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about your help situation with the H2A workers and what he uses here.
Labor's hard to come by. I mean, I don't refer to them even as labor. Everybody I work for me, I almost consider them friends and family. got 2 guys, local guys. Couldn't do it without them. I've got a secretary in the office. I mean, when she quits, I quit. I'm going with her. I hope that never happens. But yeah, so I've been in the H2A program. I think this is my 6th year. Guys from South Africa. A few of them have been here since year 1. Okay. This year, I have 9 South African guys, and only of that 9, only 2 will be new, I think.
Okay.
So they're great guys. Their age is from mid-20s to early 50s, and a lot of experience there, a lot of knowledge coming from their country, and I'm glad to have them. You know, eager to work, eager to learn, and it's just something I couldn't do without having the ability for these guys to join us on the farm and ensure that we make a crop in a timely fashion. I mean, this is all timeliness. We can talk about soil health, different pesticide applications, but when it gets down to it, it's timeliness. So.
Okay. We're going to move on to Matt Miles.
Why are you quitting me?
Because you've talked too long. Didn't you see the note I got?
Oh, what, move on, turn me off. They turned me off 10 minutes ago. Okay. All right, Matt, your turn.
Anyway, we've got Matt Miles with us. Matt's from what I would call southern Arkansas, and as far as I know, possibly for the Arkansas soybean contest, probably Matt and Perry's probably been at the top of this list for several years, and I think Matt comes out ahead of Perry most of the time.
He does.
No, not all the time.
Anyway, Matt, go on and talk about your operation. Tell us your yield and tell us how your season took you.
Well, basically, Perry stole all my thunder because we basically mimic each other. Sitting here listening to him, you know, so many of the practices he uses, we use. We're a little under 11,000 acres. We have a variety of cotton, corn, soybeans, and rice. And last year we tried peanuts, and that'll be my first year and last year that I grow peanuts. So myself individually, but it's me and my son, my wife, and his daughter. Definitely a family operation. It's very inspiring to have him. He's 26, and it's very inspiring to have him come to the top, you know. And it gives you a reason, you know, a really good reason. When prices were even low, it gives you a really good reason to want to get up and farm. When you can do it with your family, you know, and do it with people that you care about, it really don't, it's really not a job. So I feel very blessed to be able to not only be on this panel, but to be able to work with my family too. And you'd ask Corey about a team. You know, that's something that I really try to stress is, you know, we've had some success in yields in pretty much all the crops we grow, but it's a team effort, you know, from you know, me to on down to all the different people, agronomists and different people, like some of the sponsors here. You know, never would I ever give myself credit for any success we've had. We've done it as a team, and that makes it more fun too. It's kind of like working with your family when you're working with a team. So, you know, our successes have came, and you know, I feel fortunate to have had those.
Appreciate that.
So,
what was your yield again?
a little over 116.
116. So we're moving up the ladder.
Now,
here.
Perry and I we're going to move to Maryland or rent a farm in Maryland. So know that our yields are going to get better as we go.
But when we get to them, you'll realize why.
That's right.
Why you need to move.
I probably don't want that one, do I?
Again, talk a little bit about your planting. Are you in narrow rows? What are you doing as far as planting corn, beans?
Yeah.
What's your timings?
Well, in 2006 or 7, when corn hit $4, we started, you know, we were predominantly cotton farmers. So we had, you know, kind of the same soils as Perry does. We probably average a 6 cc. Now, when you get into our rice, you know, we're in a 25 cc, but it barely holds the earth together. The only thing it really grows well is rice. But when we started, we was predominantly cotton farmers, and corn and beans, you know, right there around, you know, that time they started getting a little bit better price-wise, and we started being able to talk some of these landowners in on the land that we don't own to start looking at alternate crops. And I'd been wanting to grow corn for a long time. We'd drive down to Louisiana and see it. It just seemed like, the easiest thing you could do. And I wanted an easy crop to grow coming from cotton. And I'm kind of joking when I say that to mess with y'all a little bit. But so we knew we were going to have to continue to grow cotton. So again, 38-inch rows. And so we started with, growing the soybeans on that. And they were doing good. And then they come out with a twin row planter on a 38-inch row, so we started, playing with that, and it picked up some yield. Now, it don't just blow it out the roof on soybeans and sand and in clay ground. It does probably in clay ground it'll be a 10 to 15 bushel increase. On the lighter soils it'll be 1 to 3, but that's still enough to be able to afford to have that planter. And the last 3 years. We've kind of took that twin row planter in our corn production and mimicked a 30-inch row, and we've picked up some pretty good yield there by trying to do that. I'm still on 30. I'd love to go to 30, but as long as I'm still in the cotton business, you'd have to have 2 different sets of equipment. So
What populations that soybeans?
on the soybeans, we started treating, and I guess I got ahead of myself. We started treating our soybeans. We would put them on the worst land. So if we were at that point in time, I was farming about 3,000 acres and I had about 400 acres soybeans and the rest cotton. So those were stuck in the absolute worst place that they could be. And once the price got better and the ROI got better, I said, okay, let's try to treat these beans like we treat the cotton, exactly what Perry said. And so we started doing a lot of different, management techniques that we did in the cotton. And it was like, wow, this went from 40 bushel to 65 bushels. And then we went from 65 bushels, on up from there. So that was kind of how we got into that rotation. As far as population, when we started doing this, it was like 180, and people would laugh at us. But when you take a planter and you go from a single row to a twin row, you're splitting the distance between those seeds. So getting that seed up, we could take the single row 38 and get them up all day long. It didn't matter hard. There's of course enough rain that they wouldn't come up, but we probably got them up 95% of the time. And when we went to the twin row, you're splitting the distance of those seeds, so you don't have any buddies to help you push. So that number started going down. And so we started increasing our population, but we're still seeing, like Corey said, that's too much. This year we'll go with 140 and hope for 110 or so, final stand. If we get 90, we'll be good with that too. I really like to be around the 100 mark for full yield potential. But we've seen some really good yield below that too. And a lot of people are making better yields than me with lower than 100. So I'm definitely not saying my way's right, but that's just kind of where it's fitting on my farm.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, we've got Temple Rhodes. He's a Maryland guy. Well, anyway, Temple, if you don't mind, tell a little bit about your operations. Tell me your yield.
It's a big family operation. We farm on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. We're covered up with regulations. Of course, I know everybody fights their own regional problems. We're on Chesapeake Bay, staring in our throat 24/7. And to be honest with you, as much as farmers look at it and they're, up in a roar every time they put another regulation on, it's bad. But at the end of the day, it makes us, I think it's made us farm differently. It's made us better farmers. Our farmers in our area, I put them up against anybody. They're tough. It's a rank group of guys that, they're no joke. But I think because of the regulation that we actually do have on the bench, we really can't do everything that we want to do. Beans is what we found over the years is our soybeans has gotten to be they like a lot more phosphorus than what you realize. Well, that's a huge no-no in my area. I treat my beans like I do corn. And same as Matt said, as soon as you saw those prices go up, we were like, well, why are we treating beans as a cover crop? Because that's what we were doing. As a cover crop, and you don't realize the potential in these animals if treated right. The problem with soybeans is it seems like between all the monkey juices and all the different things that you can put on them, which it's a million of them.
when you get down to the end of the day, it's just like what Perry was talking about. It's timing on all of those things. I mean, 12 passes over the beans, and that's generally not all my beans like that. I'm probably the biggest loser on all our life. So, hey, maybe that's one that.
I think we were being shot at.
I doubt it did. I'm telling you, I'm definitely the biggest loser on that.
I treat it as, I'm just trying to figure something else out. My biggest problem is one of the things that I struggle with, we have, low calcium soil, so our magnesium to calcium ratios are really messed up. So we have to dial that in all the time, and we're all the time pulling it in. We gotta watch what we put on, and everything that you put on re-affects something else at some different stage in the game. We try not to put any Roundup or glyphosate over the top of our beans, because as soon as we make that pass across, all our tissue samples, they recognize all that, and we tie something up. So I've stopped doing that on my high yielding plots. We use Zidwell Pro, and I've been using Zidwell Pro since it first came out. Tremendous product, works well. Again, you're looking at a bunch of guys that have probably used a lot of the same product. It must work, Soil health is a big thing with us. Plant health is huge with me. Every 5 days, I'm taking tissue samples. On my production fields, it's every 10 days. I get my first 2 in before I even try to make an adjustment. And then we start adjusting from there. And we have our own sprayers. My nephew, he owns this application business as well. So when I get behind, he comes in, brings all his sprayers in, and so we can cover the ground. Makes it all, and we have a big family, so I have a lot of guys, they're like you were saying earlier, you're talking about silver bullets and stuff. There is no silver bullet. There's no silver bullet to what the CornWarriors do or what the Podfathers do. There is no silver bullet. It's relationship bound. It seems like this whole show, both shows really, what I've seen, it's like a family, right? And if you can learn off of that family, and if something can spin off of that family and you can teach the other ones out there, that's just tremendous, Everybody's got a take on it. I think it's really neat how all of us farm so very differently, but if I can talk to Matt and he can give me one point of advice that I can try, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. I mean, you're talking about all these intercropping, different row spacings, all this different stuff. And everybody struggles with something very different. One of my biggest struggles with high yielding soybeans is I'm trying to branch them out as much as I can. So I get them up out of the ground. I don't plant very high populations. This year, I didn't get to plant till June 1st. I was late to the table, late to the game. I guess I was last choice. I don't know.
You would probably beat Wheat if you were.
I would definitely.
You would definitely beat him if you planted up there. Yes.
You know what? I have brought weight. I'm sitting on the back of the chair. So,
Again,
June 1st, I planted mine on June 1st.
and what was your yield again?
I was in the 140s. I already knew what his yield was, and I knew what mine was. I threw it away, I walked out. I'm like, I'm going to work. Don't talk to me. I can lose to anybody. Man, losing to him, that's like the worst. Because he's not like he's going to let you live it down either. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm not really that competitive. I don't really care. But I care when he beats me.
But he is competitive.
Yeah, and then he's really competitive, and then he's supposed to be my consultant. But realistically, who has been one more nervous? The guy that's consulting that can't beat us? I mean, the pressure was really on him. So I guess you got to give him credit.
But the thing he told me the other day was, he said, I don't give him all my secrets. So you've got a lot more.
Yeah, but what you're not realizing is that before all of this came aboard, when we were winning the Asgrow yield trials, he wasn't even getting close. So he was asking me, so maybe I'm the consultant. Now that I think about it, I am the consultant. You're welcome. The only reason you're in that chair is me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we're going to Mr. Chris Weaver. He's another Maryland farmer, a guy that I've known since about 2015, 16. And I was talking to Joe Dedman from Monty's one day, and he said, hey, there's a guy in Maryland you need to talk to. He said, this guy thinks he's going to raise 150 bushel soybeans. And I said, man, I said, give me his number. So Joe gave me his number, and I couldn't wait to call the guy. So he gets on the phone, and he was talking, he was combining soybeans. So I said, well, Mr. Weaver, I said, I'm Terry Vissing from Indiana. I said, I'd like to pick your brain a little bit about how you're trying to get these 150 bushel beans. So went on a little bit further, and I said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm combining. I said, well, how are you combining? Tell me all this stuff. And he said, well, I've slowed it down to 1.7 mile an hour. I said, well, what are you doing that for? He said, just so I can see the yield monitor higher, so I can get that 150 bushel. I believe that. So anyway, Chris is a good friend of mine, and like I said, we work through Mike. He's our soybean guru, helps us in the MAC program along with Kevin, and like to let Chris do a little bit of his talk here and tell us a little bit about his operation, his family, and some of the things that he's progressed through the years.
Thank you, Terry. I am a sixth-generation farmer from Central Maryland.
Is it confirmed?
Not confirmed like Perry. And we're just picking on each other. I mean, you'll hear me in the talk. I really owe Perry a lot of thanks as we go through this too. We grow corn, soybeans. We have a nice contract where we grow distilling rye for Sagamore rye. I did bring a bottle for Dan, so I can give him a bottle to take back home with him. We also run a feedlot, several hundred head feedlot. My dad's primarily in charge of that. I've got a really good team. Temple and I are frat brothers, just so everybody knows that ahead of time. We've known each other a long time. We always like to pick on each other. So I do want to say, he is partially, I am going to say thank you to you as we're talking about team.
About time.
Because there are years where he'll beat me and I'll beat him, but besides Podfather, we've been competing against each other 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And every year we want to be better than the other one. And that means a lot to me because the farmers around us, we do have a lot of rules, regulations, but it's fun when you have your buddy and you guys can talk to each other, you talk smack. I mean, these guys finally got to hear our smack talk that we talk all year long on videotape this year, so it'll probably be entertaining for everybody, so I hope you enjoy it. But talking about the team, you hear Perry and Matt and Corey say, I'm very blessed. I have a wife who works oodles of hours, very understanding. We have 2 great kids, Mackenzie and Charlie. I'm very fortunate she lets me do what I want to do when I want to do it. We have a great team. Nathan, he works for us for that, with the farm and the seed company. We have Ed. Ed works for the seed company as well as the farm. My father wouldn't be where I am today with him. We started out as a vegetable operation. And I contribute, like Perry said, a lot of that to our success in how we manage crops, as well as Uncle Tom's there. 50 years of knowledge between him and my dad. Uncle Tom's 74, Dad's 70. You know, so if I'm looking back, I had to step up to the plate in 2010, take over everything. So we had to make a lot of changes. You know, Dad being 70, we started using a lot of Monty's carbon back in 2010. I remember both of them calling it snake oil, and boy, you're going to bankrupt the farm and all this. But, you know, as we go through and everybody's talking soil health, we really start our whole, when we pick up new ground or anything we do, we start by looking at soil samples. We take grid samples or soil type samples. We run a Varus machine over top of all of our ground. We take samples, and then we sit down and we analyze them. Not every field, when we start taking it over, can be a high yield field. We treat all of our bean ground the same. All right, we focus in on our base saturations, our calcium and magnesium first. We look at our soil pHs, but one of the secrets to our whole program, and there is no silver bullet, but it's Monty's liquid carbon. That is number one for us where we start out. I know Joe's here. Joe comes to the farm. I've known Joe 15, 18 years. Perry, you know. Then you say about seed treaters. And what do we use? And how do we get ahead? Well, Mr. Galloway is actually the one that introduced me to USC, owner of USC, and helped design the seed treater. He's actually helped us when we had some issues running it and not getting it set up right. We're big with BASF and Mr. Galloway. I owe you another thank you for introducing me to Chris Thrasher. So, you know, we're saying a team. Perry's helped me along the way to get ahead with ABM inoculants. We use a lot of Marauder on our beans. We do a full treatment. We actually treat with humic. as well as a levo on our beans. As far as that goes, we plant anywhere from a group 2-6 bean all the way up to a 4-3 bean. We're 80% Stein and 20% Agrigold. All the Stein beans up till 2020 were all LLGT 27s. We did a 50 acres in Agrigold this year. We had a 10-acre block that did 148.9 bushel, which I was hoping I was going to be able to beat Temple with that, but then we got into a group 4-1 Stein bean that was really remarkable. We had a lot of issues along the way. We had a gate that the guys, the day they were out filming on one of the trucks, I didn't check it back, the 10-wheeler gate gets sprung open, leaking beans as we're driving down the road. So I don't want anybody to think farming's easy by any means, because it's not. I was talking to Terry one day on the phone, combining the field at 0.6 miles an hour, and I looked around at the yield monitor for maybe about 2-3 seconds. And the funny part was I broke a spline shaft, and we were down for about 2.5 weeks because the spline shaft came from California. So not everything's always easy on our operation, but we try. And a lot of the management style we've taken over comes from the vegetable business. We tissue sample about every 7 to 12 days. Through our consulting business, we tell everybody to do the same thing. Make sure you're tissue sampling. We have tissue samples, soil samples. Well, soil samples going back 20, 25 years on a lot of the ground. Tissue samples for the last 10 years that we pretty much benchmark and earmark pretty well on beans now because of our management style and what we're seeing. I am pretty much making a foliar application before the tissue samples are even back on most things for potash down the line. We've seen a lot of issues. When we get started spraying beans, those beans are probably VE to V1, and we're going hard, we're not stopping. We do treat every bean acre the same. We'll adjust on corn. I don't know what else I forget here.
I don't know how you could forget anything as much as you're
I'll share
talking.
it. I'm very blessed. I mean, you and Cobb with the MAC group, I do teach the soybean part of the MAC group, but you know, throughout my years, I've been really blessed. I mean, I've got to meet Terry, Joe Dedman, Kevin Brooks. You know, Perry's been a big help. I mean, he tried to shoot me goose hunting one time, but I don't think that was a joke. I think he was actually aiming for me. But we're really blessed. I mean, I feel fortunate. I just got to meet Matt, and you know, he's an awesome farmer. So all these guys up here, I mean, just because this year was my year doesn't mean that next year Perry's not going to outdo me or something like that, because it can happen.
Chris, I'd like to present this Podfather Award to you for the highest yield of 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're holding my drink for me. Thank you.
You never asked him what his yield was.
He told you.
Did he?
They didn't hear your yield.
Oh, our yield was 158. Biggest advice I can give is, you know, Temple said it the best in one of the episodes, get a team. I mean, you want the silver bullet approach. I mean, get a good team.
It's relationship bound, you know, and I think that's part of this whole show thing as well. You know, you got a relationship here, and it's a family, and it's feeding off each other. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're really blessed. I mean, we formed a good relationship now, Copperhead being here. You know, we formed a good relationship with a lot of different companies. We use a lot of LFEMA for BASF. It's the relationships you can build from the MAC school to having my lovely wife that lets me get away with murder back at the farm and do whatever I want when I need to do it. And she puts up with a lot, from even letting me talk to Vissing at 10, 11 o'clock at night a lot of times and helping answer questions. Now, I will tell you, I do go to bed at 5 o'clock. The joke behind that is because I will not take Brooks or Kevin's call after 5 o'clock, so I turn off my phone then. But no, the biggest secret is get a team, get a relationship. I'm blessed. I have a relationship with the AgriGold guys. AgriGold's a big part of our whole operation. It's where it all begins for us. We have a good relationship with Monty's, Joe Dedman. You know, the best piece of advice is get those relationships to get it. So our plans for this year, we've made a lot of changes over the winter. We've been busy in our shop. We run a lot of in-furrow on our corn planters. We've adjusted our corn planters this year. We'll run the same mix on our corn and bean planters the same way through in furrow. We also run a lot, we dribble a lot of, stream a lot of our products on early. So we'll continue to do that. We have a couple toolbars that we're going to start running this year, and also for our 2x2 applications. We just put copperhead concaves in our combine over the winter, so we're looking forward to getting ahead with that. But the biggest thing is, my goal is to hit 200 bushel. I want to be one of the first guys to get 200 bushel non-irrigated beans. And it started to be our goal in 2014. And I'll tell you guys right ahead of time, I've never gone up and had a great yield and achieved a higher yield the following year. I always go back about 10 or 15 bushel the year after we get a good year, so I'll make sure to pull Temple back down with me as well. But along our trials, we've always gone up and then back down. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do in 2021. Hopefully we get the right amount of rain, about one rainstorm about once a week, and perfect sunshine.
Everybody, like in Maryland last year, he's on the western shore and I'm on the eastern shore. And we're what, hour and a half apart?
Yeah.
About an hour and a half apart. He's just on the other side of the bridge. But he wasn't getting any rain. He was dry. And in the month of August, we got 23 inches of rain. And it was brutal for us.
And a lot of our success this year on beans, it actually, it's going to pain me to say this. I got to give some credit to Cobb. It really hurts. I was talking to Kevin one day. It was 10:30 in the morning. Nathan was riding with me in the truck. And Kevin said, when's the last time you guys got a shot of rain? And it was right after July 4th. We just had gotten back. And I go, it's been about 4 weeks. I'm really nervous. We're going to quit spraying. And Kevin made a comment to me about carbon and sugar. And as I'm driving down the road, this is the only thing out of the rest of the conversation that Cobb was talking about. He was talking, I wasn't paying attention. And I go, carbon and sugar, huh? So I went back, we loaded up the sprayer, and Monty's carbon and sugar, we went in and sprayed those beans for the next 5 weeks. We would get 1/10 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, if we were lucky on those farms. But that was our secret weapon. We were just going in and keeping those plants, reducing the stress. And look, there's nobody more surprised. When we loaded the truck, I don't believe in yield miners because, as everybody knows, and I tell this to Vissing, I can speed up and slow down real quick to see what 600 bushel looks like. But when my dad called me from the scale house and told me what those beans did, another mishap. So I don't want you to think by any means we're perfect. I jumped out on the platform of the combine to the 3 employees that were there, and I go, woohoo, we finally did it. As at that time, a piece of stubble came up and hit me in the eye and scratched my cornea. And I go, this is what I get for bragging. Yeah. So along the way, there's always trials and tribulations, but usually when I get a big hit or try to do something like that, something bad hits me and knocks me right back down right away. So we're really looking forward to 2021, and like I said, it's the relationships that we got, the relationships that formed with these guys, that are going to help us. I can't wait to talk to Matt in the middle of harvest and planting season this year to see what he's doing and how that's all going as well.
I'll say a couple things, and this isn't what I'm going to do to try to catch Chris. I respect everything he's done. But part of our program, and Terry cut me off, we didn't get in our fungicide applications. So, we're making 2 fungicide applications, R1, R5, R2, R5, somewhere in there. That's always worth, 6 or 8 extra bushels. And like Chris was talking about the seed treater, I didn't realize I had that much of an impact on seed treatment. So I'll just throw this out there maybe as a tip. All seed treatments have a lot of water or carrier. So using a humic product like Monty's or any of those carbon-based products are cheap or inexpensive substitutions for the water in your seed treatment. So if you're treating your own seed or you're having it custom done, I would recommend using one of these products that we're talking about instead of the water. That'll go a long way. Plus sugar. There's
Like every pass that you make in the field, do you put fungicide on or no?
No.
You don't. See, we do, like every 10 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
At the most.
No, I'm just, most of my fields only get 1 shot. We use Revitec on about every acre of beans, and we use the Veltima on, I know, every acre of corn. And some of the beans are fields that had the most potential. We put that R5 application. I mean, the University of Arkansas says it's worth 5 or 6 bushels. They don't ever say anything positive. And I've got some good friends, but if the University of Arkansas is going to come out and say, not only does the first fungicide application work, the second one at R5 will get you 5 to 6 bushels, take note. I discovered that accidentally 10 years ago on some seed production. We had some late season disease, and the seed company at the time wanted us to put more fungicide out. So we did. I had a little bit left over, went to a non-seed production field, and basically split the field, and it was very obvious that it paid off. At that time, it was 6 bushels. So again,
Every year is a
and
little
then
different.
7 or 8 years later, the university comes out and makes this recommendation. I said, well, I'm not crazy. So anyway.
Well, these guys are the leaders. These guys know how to grow soybeans and how to grow high-yield soybeans. And I think last year the average in the United States was 50 bushels. So we've got almost 150% of national average. And these guys are the ones to look forward to. And like I said, I don't think you heard any silver bullets. I think most of these guys will admit that it's a program, and you've sort of got to have a team to initiate that program and carry it all the way out. And weather is always a culprit in all your growing areas. So you know, we do pretty darn good here in the United States growing these soybeans. So again, I want to appreciate you guys being up here, and hopefully the viewers all enjoyed this, and have a nice
We always beat this in Perry.
have a nice
That's all I care about.
2021.